good, listeners? Our guest returning live on the Chris College Show, Millennial Talk Show, is co-founder of Gen Z Critics, Elizabeth Betsy Kim. How's it going, fam?
It's good. Thanks for having me.
And
Yay! Thank you for coming back. Thank you.
We love you, Betsy. And I know for anybody who's not familiar with Gen Z Critics, they were founded in 2016 over your frustration for the lack of youth opinion in film criticism. And with the Oscar season right around the corner, what were the common themes being expressed among the Gen Z Critics submissions?
Yeah, I would say one important theme is questioning what film criticism is, each person defining it for themselves. One critic we had defined film criticism as a mindfulness practice, which I thought was really interesting. But she also talked about how some people process movies by creating fan art and fan fiction, and that's something not that we shouldn't belittle, but we should encourage. Another film critic, the end of her essay said, the plethora of diverse voices and backgrounds of critics will help them see this, that anyone can and should be a film critic. Film critique is every exclamation of, that was so cool, or lamentation of, I can't believe I spent my money on that as one walks out of the theater. That's
my favorite, because I've done that way too many times. I was like, well, that's a waste of my money or time.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a real thing. That kind of shocked me on a level. When you're talking about Gen Z critics, a lot of the submissions were actually talking about the actual arena of film criticism today. I never really would have thought that was such a main focus on Gen Zers nowadays. And, I was really in awe with this year's winner of Gen Z Critics, which is Anastasia Ibrahim, who wrote a piece titled, Here's When Representation Isn't a Cliche. And she had a sentence that stuck out to me saying, quote, if you want to increase interest in film criticism, increase visibility. And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think the way I interpret it is that people of all walks of life should be able to log onto Netflix, walk into a theater, and see themselves represented with humanity. I think that requires most of the time for an actor to be able to speak to the experience that they're portraying, and also for the creators of the film to have done their research so that there's a degree of accuracy and realism there. I think beyond sort of the politics of it all, relying on stereotypes is just lazy storytelling. I think.
That's definitely something. Yeah.
And as an actor, I think what I come across is I'm willing to do my homework, but I'm given stuff that is not accurate, is lazy. And so when I think it comes from the writer to production, that has to be upped a lot more, because I know a lot of actors will be like, okay, I'm trying my best, but this is what I have to work with. You know what I mean? So we all have to do it, but that part needs to step up like beyond. Disney, AKA.
Oh, yeah.
Together.
No, I think that's so true, Betsy. And I mean, trust me, I understand that perception on screen and, that there are still cinematic stereotypes that haven't changed today. I mean, some of the ones that I was thinking about, where Asians are still nerdy. If you have a British accent, you're probably mostly evil. Maybe if you're German, maybe you have some ties to being a Nazi. And if Africa is featured, it's dangerous and it's untouched civilization. So where do you see us fixing that problem in the future of storytelling?
Yeah, I think, its representation is complicated. I think, definitely giving young creators the chance to tell original stories is a huge, huge part of it. I think writing new stories and creating a new canon for this new generation is really important. When it comes to changing existing stories, it's a bit more complicated. And I tend to evaluate more each movie or series like on a case-by-case basis. An example of this is, I think on the one hand, I think it's great that Halle Bailey got cast as Ariel in The Little Mermaid.
Right.
On the other hand, I do think that you run into what I think used to be the Hamilton question, which is now sort of the Bridgerton question, when you are kind of doing more race blind casting.
Right.
Bridgerton was billed as an escapist fantasy, and I think it really delivered on that promise. That's why so many people loved it over COVID. But I also think that the criticisms of that approach are really valid.
Yeah, and I know Anastasia continues by saying in her piece, quote, embrace the niche, the layers of marginalization, cultivate representation into highly particularized fragments. And why is diversity being forced in changing existing stories like you just referenced? Because I feel like the best way to include minorities and get that fair representation is to create original stories. Like, how do we get Gen Z writers to get big in Hollywood if we continue to just reshape and reimagine the stories that have already existed today? Like, could you imagine Chris Collins casted as the next Black Panther? I mean, okay, you see how crazy that sounds? I mean, we all know that whitewashing exists. I mean, look, Jake Gyllenhaal was the Prince of Persia. But wouldn't you agree that if more original storytelling were to happen in Hollywood, then we would start seeing more of that representation today?
Yeah, I think, I think that's probably more important than reimagining current stories. I don't think there's enough emphasis that's been put on it. Yeah, I would.
Well, right. I mean, this was a very funny line. And I don't know, because you are the Gen Zer, Betsy. And Anastasia pointed this out at the last paragraph of her piece. And she wrote, Gen Z is a generation of narcissists who love staring at ourselves. Her words, not mine. But don't you feel like forcing representation is stupid, as it always kind of comes across as like trying to appease people, as like opposed to being genuine or being set out as different?
I think it depends on the person. I think that studio heads are always trying to pander to audiences and trying to appease people. But I also think that there are a lot of people for whom representation is really important. They treat it as a mission. It's not about pandering, to get people's money.
Let's move on, because, with CBS merged with Viacom and the majority of Fox now owned by Disney, has the streaming revolution been good for the entertainment industry?
I think it's translated to more opportunities for creators and for writers. In that case, I think it's probably a good thing. Yeah.
So that's fascinating that you say that, because I know Amazon announced this month that it closed its acquisition with one of Hollywood's oldest studios, which is MGM, for $8.5 billion. That's making the company's second largest acquisition ever, next to Whole Foods. And how do you feel about streaming services, being bought out by these major media giants? I get kind of concerned for the next great storyteller.
Yeah, there's someone out there with a more nuanced take than me. I don't think that much is changing. I think that new big business is buying out old big business. That's a pretty to it.
So you don't mind that a lot of these like independent television and film companies like A24 are kind of linking up, getting bought out around the world by other, bigger media giants? Like, that doesn't play a factor in your world?
You know what? I feel like I've been pretty consistently impressed by A24 over the years. If I start to see the quality going down, I would be concerned, but I've been pretty impressed by how many original stories across how many different genres they've been able to turn out some really interesting, like really exciting movies. So I'm not too concerned as of yet.
So you're not too concerned, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do you feel like these traditional media companies are going to slowly die away, and then what we're going to know as the Hollywood studios are Netflix and Amazon, Apple?
No, not particularly. Again, I don't differentiate that much among big businesses, or have that much, feel very sentimental towards the old media giants, I think, of old Hollywood.
Absolutely. And I know, Betsy, the 94th Academy Awards is happening March 27th. And we all know that the Oscars needs younger representation. And let's say you are a voting member, which you are highly qualified for, Betsy. So, hey, Oscar board, if you're listening right now, we got the woman in charge for this, okay? And I want to know for you, who will win Best Picture this year? I know we had kind of an inclination, last season about what you were thinking about, but has your mind changed?
I have heard that The Power of the Dog is probably going to win. What I would vote for, the movie I would choose for Best Picture is actually CODA. I loved that movie. I would love for it to win. I think it probably is going to not, though.
You know, but it's actually kind of shocking the world right now. I know it won at the BAFTAs. I know just on Sunday they won at the Producers Guild Awards. You know, and so there is kind of some momentum kind of building up on that. But you know, when I was looking at the Best Picture and the Best Director, I kind of giggled a little bit seeing that Dune was nominated for Best Picture. But how do you get nominated for Best Picture but then not be placed in the Best Director category when all the visual representation, with CGI and etc. is all there being nominated, but he doesn't get any of the credit for the work? What's your take on this?
I have no idea. I don't really know what differentiates Best Picture from Best Director, to be honest with you.
Right. I mean, it's the director's role to make the script, the paper come to life on screen. And I would, as someone who's done a short film, nothing to the extent as what Dennis has done, you would think that you get some praise for it. But, other than that, he's not going to get it. Sorry, fam. But when it comes to the listing that we have here who are nominated for Best Director, who do you see as taking the grand prize?
Yeah, Jane Campion.
Yep, 100%. She's got it, 100%.
Really? Do we really think
so.
I mean, so many people that I know that have seen that film basically say it's a snore, it's a sleeper. Mm-hmm. But then again, it's like, that's why when I did watch CODA, I did find that to have a little bit more humor, a little bit bass. It kind of shocked me on a personal level, considering when I'm thinking about the overall environment with millennials. It just feels like all these films up here are dusty.
I don't know. So far, Elizabeth, whenever you make a prediction, you're right.
That's true.
So I'm just going to go with Elizabeth on. She's got that one.
That's right. So you better go drive your ass to Las Vegas right now. Place your betting odds in because Elizabeth Betsy Kim, she is the person for that role. And, it would be hard to ignore this, Betsy, because the Academy is changing the Oscars and enraging the industry it celebrates by removing 8 categories from this year's live telecast, such as Best Original Score, Film Editing, and Production Design, to name a few. And is this the way that you would handle, declining viewership?
It is, and I kind of hate myself for it because I know a film is so much more than the on-screen talent and the director. To make it really good. But I think the Academy Awards needs to be a spectacle. The more you make it less of a spectacle and more of an insider's event, the fewer people are going to watch it. So I do think that on-screen talent needs to be prioritized to get more people interested.
Well, what happened to just the old traditional, just cutting the mic? You don't think like if they had like a hard deadline and go straight to the commercial break, then they would be able to squeeze everybody in? I would just love to see like Michael Keaton up there and he says his speech and then they just cut him off. And you're just like, that is what it is. I mean, wouldn't that be the best way? Because, I mean, don't you think the problem with the Oscars are the producers who place these people in the Oscar hosting positions, such as Amy Schumer, to use the opportunity as, quote, she's saying this, to taking no prisoners, and there might be a little squirming in her seats. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is I don't get the same vibe from Amy Schumer that she's going to bring like Ricky Gervais did. Like Ricky Gervais absolutely demolished the Hollywood industry for what it is.
He was good. I would have brought him back again. I love Ricky Gervais.
But my problem is it just feels like the Academy Awards feels like a political rally. And that's why people don't want to tune in. Do you see that being a problem?
I go back and forth. I understand the need for escapism when you see something on TV. Movies to a certain extent are meant to be frivolous, but I also think that they have pretty significant consequences. So trying to pretend that they're apolitical is hard,
right?
And a bit disingenuous.
I mean, one of the things I giggled this week where Amy Schumer is literally working her tail off to try to bring President Zelensky virtually to the Oscars. Like war just pauses for an awards show. Like that is what I think irks people when they go to watch the celebration of film, because it doesn't feel like the celebration of film when we start turning this into a social justice movement. I mean, do you feel like, millennials really care? Because honestly, I feel like we don't. I mean, at this point, we're sort of all tuned out by all the negativity in the press, and that's the last thing we want when it comes to our award shows, right?
Yeah. I think, maybe the way that SNL did it, I think is maybe the right way to handle it, where they did have a segment in the beginning that I think was dedicated to Ukraine, but then went on to do all these amazing skits.
Right. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But when it's
Yeah.
constantly flooded through with every single speech, someone will go, hey, I don't want to talk about CODA, I want to talk about the current event of the day. Do people really care? I don't necessarily know. And that's why it just feels like why does Hollywood confuses being famous with being an activist? I mean, because I have such a hard time. It just feels kind of slightly obnoxious to think that a group of privileged people in the entertainment industry in one room are patting themselves on the back, but then are simply trying to tell us how we should feel in these current times today.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. Also, because I don't think actors are the most informed.
Right. I mean, I'm not even that
Unfortunately.
informed. And so when we start hearing from people who are not foreign policy experts and everybody that wants, it's like what we're hearing this week, everybody's going to tell you your opinion on the Supreme Court nominee. She's highly qualified. I'm totally sure. But you don't need to listen to your family and friends on Facebook.
And I think you kind of hit it on the nose, Chris and Betsy too. Like, I don't think it's so much that people don't care and are tuning out. Like, I'm watching what's happening in Ukraine. I think it's a big deal. Like, me personally, I find it completely ingenuous and awkward that she wants to bring him in on an award show when he just went to Congress, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like that's people in Ukraine, like you said, are just gonna, like, they're being bombed. Oh, wait, hey, hi, how you guys doing? Films over there. So glad Hollywood sees us. Hey, ingenuous. Like, come
President Zelensky, he was an actor. Let's celebrate some of his acting work. Like, really? We're gonna pause 5 minutes while he's hiding in the dark in some unknown location? To me, I just find that so crazy, and that's why I feel like the Academy Awards is slowly dying off. I mean, we're gonna start to find a new home to celebrate film. I feel like the BAFTAs, after all, are going to eventually take over the Oscars. Or do you see something new being taken in place?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great segue to another thing I want to talk about. Gen Z critics this year did our own awards voting.
That's right.
We will be releasing the results of how people voted. Anyone could have voted, by the way, as long as they were Gen Z or Millennial, shortly before the Oscars later this week. And I won't spoil anything. I will tell you that people voted very differently than the Academy.
I cannot wait to put a side-by-side comparison of, the winners of Gen Z compared to the Oscars, because I guess that's the point I was trying to get at. These films, they kind of feel dusty. It's like the joke I saw Jimmy Kimmel last week saying, how in the world did Spider-Man, when he was talking to Andrew Garfield, how did that not get nominated for Best Picture? It's a film that dominated the box office worldwide, and after all, I thought that's what film's all about. I mean, we had Parasite take over the world. No one ever thought that was going to be a reality that would sink in, but it does. And I think that's kind of the issue that we have today with the Academy Awards. And I cannot wait. And where's the link that we can check out the submissions once they are published to the public?
Yeah, so please follow us at Gen Z Critics on Instagram, on Twitter. We are also now on TikTok. Please follow our TikTok.
There we go, TikTok. Hey, that's such a Gen Zer thing. I love it, man. But hey, Elizabeth, Betsy, Kim, thank you again for joining the Chris College Show, Millennial Talk Show. And are there anything exciting happening in the world of Gen Z critics that the CCS family needs to know about?
Yes, please go to our website, read the work of young critics. We're publishing them every day, every week.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. And you are a godsend to the industry. And we're going to find you a home, Betsy.
I know. I love it. Thank you, Betsy, so much.
Rock and roll.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.